Peace and blessings be upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, the Imams and the Mahdis. Peace be upon you all. Today, inshallah, I want to speak to you about a topic. It's an important topic. I'll speak in Arabic and then I'll speak in English. So that way both the people that speak Arabic can understand me and the people that speak English as well can understand me. Today I just wanted to open up the topic of infallibility and speak about that, and speak about what Ahmad al-Hasan alayhi salam has taught us about the concept of infallibility. I want to talk to you today about infallibility and the meaning of infallibility. Infallibility basically breaks down to two parts. There is inherent infallibility and there is earned infallibility. If we look at the definition of each one of them and we see which one and who falls under which category, we come first to inherent infallibility. And inherent infallibility means by definition that the person whom goes under this category is an infallible man. He's infallible by nature. He's infallible from the day that he was born and up until the day that he dies. This person does not commit any sort of mistake or any sort of sin during his entire lifetime. And there is only 14 individuals or 14 names whom have gone underneath this category. And they are the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they are Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and the 12 Imams from the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, starting with Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib and ending with Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. These 14 names, these 14 personalities are the ones whom have inherent infallibility, and they are infallible by nature. History cannot find against them a single mistake. History cannot find against them a single sin. History has never recorded for these individuals any sort of sin or any sort of mistake. And the one whom argues otherwise would have to prove that. And of course, this is the normal belief which is held by the Shia and the followers of the Marjas in regards to the 14 infallibles. They all believe this. And also the Ahl Sunnah believe that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was infallible from birth till death. Why is this the case? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create except for Muhammad and the family of Muhammad alayhim salam. They are the perfect image of the Lord. He created them in His image. And what I mean by that is Muhammad and Fatima and Ali and Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein alayhim salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them in the perfect image, and they are the ones whom created the rest of creation. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates everything and He created everyone because He is the one whom gave people the ability to create. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a direct creator only created those pure souls. And those pure souls created other souls. And those souls created other souls. And as such, as far as earned infallibility, the other and the second type of infallibility, all of the prophets and the messengers and the righteous ones, besides the 14 infallibles, will go underneath this category. Meaning that their infallibility was earned infallibility. Every single one of the prophets and the messengers have made mistakes, except for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He never made a mistake before he knew he was a prophet, and he never made a mistake after he knew he was a prophet. Earned infallibility means that the individual was not born infallible, and he is not infallible in his own self. Rather, he reached to a certain degree of infallibility through his sincerity and his dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And earned infallibility is less and lesser than inherent infallibility. Because by definition, the person whom is not inherently infallible, for sure he had made some mistakes or sins in his past. This issue is very clear in the Holy Quran, in many different places. And even though one particular example would be enough to establish the proof, let us look at many different examples from the Holy Quran. The example number one, Adam alayhi salam. Adam alayhi salam was a prophet. He was the first prophet. And even though he was a prophet, and even though he was infallible, he committed a great mistake. Because he was not infallible by nature. He wasn't inherently infallible. Rather, he earned infallibility at a certain point in time through dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this mistake which Adam alayhi salam did was when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Adam and commanded him to not eat from the tree. So the creator of all things asked Adam to not come by this tree, don't eat from this tree. Adam disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a direct order, and he ate from the tree, and he obeyed Iblis lanatullah alayh when Iblis whispered to him and he said, "O Adam, shall I show you and tell you where is the tree of immortality and a kingship which never goes away?" So he ate from it until the end of the verse, and it says, and Adam disobeyed his Lord, and then after that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had forgiven him. So there's no arguing with the concept that some of the prophets had made mistakes. It's clear, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned their mistakes, and this was one of the examples, Adam alayhi salam. The second example is Noah, peace be upon him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had promised Noah, peace be upon him, that all of the righteous ones would survive, and the righteous ones would inherit the earth with him. And this is what the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Noah was. And Noah believed in this promise, and Noah taught that and gave glad tidings of this promise for 950 years. And even though that was the case, that Noah was a prophet, and he was one of the prophets from the Ulil Azm, and the Ulil Azm are the greatest of prophets and messengers, he doubted in the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He second-guessed the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He accused the Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he did not fulfill the promise. How? The Holy Quran says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and Noah called forth towards his Lord and said, "My Lord, my son is from my family, and your promise is the truth, and you are the most wise of wise." He said, "O Noah, he is not from your family, he is an unrighteous work, so do not ask about that which you have no knowledge of. I am warning you that you do not be of those whom are ignorant." So he said to his Lord, "I seek refuge that I ask you about that which I have no knowledge of, and if you do not forgive me, and if you do not have mercy on me, I shall be of those whom lost." So Noah's asking God and telling him, unless you forgive for me this sin which I made against you, this mistake which I made against you, then I will be of those whom have lost. And here is a second example from the Holy Quran that the prophets and the messengers, and even the messenger of the Ulil Azm like Noah alayhi salam, did not have inherent infallibility. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. So Moses' mistake was that when he went to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said to Allah, he was a prophet of the Ulul Azm, said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "I want to see you." Moses was the third example, and even though he was a prophet of the Ulil Azm, he made a huge mistake with consequences which we'll not talk about right now. But he reached the matter with him that he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, when Allah's appointment with Musa had came, and his Lord had spoke to him, Moses said to his Lord, Lord, let me look at you, let me see you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you shall not see me, but if you look over at that mountain, if it stays in its place, you shall see me. So when his Lord manifested to the mountain, he made it into pieces, and Moses went forth on his face, and he was shocked. And when he woke up from this shock, this coma that he was in, he said, Subhanaka, verily I have repented to you, and I am the first of the believers. Joseph, peace be upon him. Joseph is the fourth example. Joseph had made many mistakes, and here are a couple of Joseph's mistakes in the Holy Quran. Joseph had thoughts about Zulaykha, and she had thoughts about him. And that, of course, was a wrong action and a wrongdoing, and something which Joseph had admitted to himself. And in the Holy Quran it said, and she thought about him and he thought about her, if it was not for the fact that he saw the proof of his Lord. As such do we remove from him all evil and all lewdness. Verily he was from our sincere worshippers and servants. And Joseph says, and I do not declare myself innocent. Verily the self which commands evil, verily the self commands evil, except for that which my Lord has mercy on. And verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all forgiving, and He is all merciful. Joseph also had made another mistake, and that was that he asked for the help of a human being, of a creature, of a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of asking directly for help from the Creator. And in the Holy Quran it mentions this. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And he said to the one which he thought was going to escape from them, meaning from the two companions of the prison, he told the one which he was expecting to get out of jail, he told him, mention me with your Lord, meaning the Pharaoh. So the shaitan made him forget the remembrance of his Lord, and therefore he stayed in prison for an additional couple of years. Imam Ahmad al-Hassan has recently commented on this story. And Imam Ahmad al-Hassan has said, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had appropriated and had ordained that Joseph stay in prison for 3 years. But after this mistake of Joseph's, he remained in prison for an additional 4 years. Example number 5, Jonah, or Yunus, peace be upon him. And Dhul-Nun, the companion of Nun, Yunus, if he went forth angry, and he thought that we did not have ability over him, and he ended up crying out in the darknesses that there is no God but you, glorified be you, verily I was of the wrongdoers. And the story of Jonah, the story of Yunus in the well, is a famous story, and it's mentioned in the Torah, it's mentioned in the Bible, it's mentioned in the holy texts. And it's not a story which is hidden from most people. They know what the mistake of Jonah was, and it's mentioned as well in the Holy Quran. So those are 5 examples from the Holy Quran of messengers of Allah whom committed mistakes or committed sins. And the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam mention much more than that. And these 5 examples were Adam, Noah, Joseph, Moses, and Jonah. As for those whom say that the proof that the messengers and the prophets have inherent infallibility, meaning they were infallible from birth till death, is in the following verse, and they point towards this verse to prove their point. And it is the verse which says, and she pointed to him, and they said, how can we speak to that he who is in the carriage? He's a child, a baby. And he said, I'm the servant of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given me the book and made me a prophet. Some people point towards the miracle which happened with Jesus when he spoke from the cradle, to say that Jesus was therefore, and the prophets and the messengers are therefore inherently infallible from birth until death. Well, that's not a proof for inherent infallibility for the messengers at all. Because the speech of Jesus, peace be upon him, came when it was coming and when he was testifying in order to declare the innocence of his mother Mary. And it is the same as the speech of the child in the palace whom testified to the chastity of Joseph, and that Joseph did not commit the horrible act with Zulaykha which he was being accused of. And that one that was in the palace with Joseph, that child, was not a prophet nor a messenger. Therefore, people cannot use the speech of Jesus in the cradle as a proof for his inherent infallibility, but rather, that was an example of the examples. It was a miracle for that particular time, and it was not a proof of inherent infallibility. Now, those are 5 examples from the Holy Quran. Imam Ahmad al-Hasan gave another example of another messenger from the Bible whom had made a mistake. And he had said that Jesus had made several mistakes during his lifetime. One of the mistakes that Jesus had made was that he was not able to bear the crucifixion. And he did not want to be crucified, and he did not handle the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he be crucified. And this is clearly shown in the Bible. And we have mentioned to you, and by the way, this does not mean that the lookalike was better than Jesus. On the contrary, Jesus and the Ulil Azm are much better than the lookalike, and perhaps many others too. And we have mentioned to you now mistakes from the prophets and the messengers from the Quran, example from the Bible, and verily what has been hidden from you is greater. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. وصلى الله على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. And all praises due to Allah. May Allah send His blessings upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, the Imams and the Mahdis. If anybody has a question, go ahead. تفضل أي شخص عنده سؤال. I love you too, Hussam al-Hakim. تفضل. Somebody says, Abu Sadiq, is it possible that one of the infallibles committed great sins? Which infallibles are you talking about, Mirt Khurasani? Are you talking about the 14 infallibles, or are you talking about those that have earned infallibility? If you're talking about those who have inherent infallibility, then no, absolutely not. If you're talking about those who have earned infallibility, then yes, it's possible. At a time before they reached a stage where they were infallible, it is possible, yes. And certainly disobeying a direct order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, certainly some of the examples which I showed, including asking to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, were great mistakes. Ahmad al-Hasan says, Ahmad al-Hasan who was present in this time, his infallibility is earned infallibility in this round. And the one whom taught him how to be infallible was his father. His father Muhammad ibn al-Hasan whom taught him and disciplined him alongside with his brother, the son of Mary alayhi salam. If the soul is incarnated, is it always the very same soul with no differences at all? Or does the soul change to an extent by different influences in each incarnation? Like, is my soul changed by the surroundings, what am I doing, or what I know, or who I love, and so on? Or is it without any changes always the same soul? The only thing that doesn't change is the soul. The soul remains constant. Yes, there's different trials and tribulations for that soul depending on the time which it is born in, and depending on the influences and the environment which it's born in, and the traditions and its parents and the circumstances have influence on the trials and tribulations for that soul in that time. But the soul remains the same. One soul which comes into one body and is incarnated on earth many different times. Is it possible in this day and age for us to attain infallibility if we were returned and were not among the prophets or the messengers before? Of course, it's possible, and the doors are opened up for all of the believers. As far as the 12 Imams, Muhammad, Fatima, Ali, the total 15, not 14, this question keeps repeating itself. I don't know why. The 14 infallibles, it's known, there are 14, and the 14s are Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Fatima al-Zahra, alayhi salam, and the 12 Imams. 12 plus 2 equals 14. The Imams consist from Ali ibn Abi Talib is the first one, alayhi salam, all the way to Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, alayhi salam. Ahmad al-Hasan, alayhi salam, in this day and age, in this incarnation, does not have and is not counted as one of the 14, as the name Ahmad al-Hasan, the title. But he is part of the 14 as Musa Kazim alayhi salam. He is part of the 14 as Al-Hussein alayhi salam. And in those rounds, his infallibility was inherent. Abdulla al-Kazimi is going to give a lecture, he said, regarding infallibility. As a continuation to my words, I'm going to hand over the mic to him. Inshallah, somebody will be available to translate the speech as it's being said, and you can all benefit it, inshallah. I miss you guys very much. Inshallah, I will be with you much more. Inshallah, I plan to be with you every single Monday at the same time with some new words from the Imam alayhi salam for all of you. And by the way, Imam Ahmad al-Hasan alayhi salam has sent a special salam to each and every one of you. Imam Ahmad al-Hasan alayhi salam يبعث سلامه لجميع الأنصار فردا فردا. He sends it to each one of them individual by individual. He sends salam to all of the people whom have returned, all the righteous ones, all the ones whom are upon this da'wah. He sends his salam to Sheikh Abdulla al-Kazimi and to Sam al-Qureshi and to whom the Power Talk Adil al-Khuli, Jazakallah khair al-jazaa for everybody, and Allah Ta'ala Sattar take the mic now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, al-imam al-mahdina wa sallam tasliman kathira.